Hello, I'm Rob Coston from Nautilus International. Now, who looks out for seafarers in the most difficult circumstances? If you're being forced to undertake dangerous work you aren't trained for, or perhaps your vessel's been abandoned, who can you go to for help? Well, I'm talking to one of those people today to shed light on how you can get the assistance you need. That's Matt Parsonage, who's an ITF inspector. Matt, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rob. Nice to join you.
Thank you. So, getting into it straight away, first of all, what is your job as an ITF inspector? What does that involve?
Yeah, well, our role is to protect and promote the rights of seafarers globally, which we do by carrying out inspections on flag of convenience vessels, calling into ports in our coverage areas, and also handling casework that might come our way. We're on the front line, really, so seafarers can always approach us for help with their problems. Some of the inspections that we do are routine, which means that we will target a vessel based on many factors regarding ownership, whether it has an ITF agreement, the flag on obviously on the vessel as well. And on other occasions, we may actually be contacted by seafarers directly. They may have had a number passed to them by a former colleague or found us via our website. If they've got issues with any of their welfare provisions on board, and they don't feel comfortable raising it with the hierarchy on board the vessel. Or they may also sometimes they're not aware of the complaints procedure, which is in place or should be in place on every vessel under MLC. So if that's the case, then we'll go on board and we'll investigate their concerns, and we'll try to resolve the issue whilst also protecting their identity.
Yeah, thank you. So, you mentioned that you're proactive, you go out and look for vessels to inspect, and also you react when seafarers get in touch with you. What are some of the common problems that you encounter during those inspections or that seafarers bring to you themselves?
Well, they can be quite varied, to be fair, Rob. As the shipping industry itself is quite varied. But on a day-to-day basis, I deal a lot with contractual matters, especially unpaid wages, overtime working hours, and repatriation issues. Um, I also do a lot of work on crew welfare as well. So obviously when we do a physical inspection, we're checking for all kinds of things, not just obviously the paperwork, but the living conditions on board. So things like general cleanliness on board, safe food storage, waste containment, the quality of accommodation, such as gym or Wi-Fi, that kind of stuff, as well as the arrangements on board, all the way up to the operation of the vessel itself. Ships are inherently dangerous work environments. So we need to make sure that the standards are kept high, and we do that by having a presence and making sure that we visit as many vessels as we can to maintain this high standard.
Yeah, so I'm wondering who are the kind of seafarers that come to you? You mentioned flag of convenience vessels there. Uh, I'm guessing that that's the vast majority of your cases, or do you also get vessels that you inspect from quality flags where you've maybe heard about an issue on board that you need to deal with?
Well, we do only work on flag of convenience vessels unless, say, for example, a British flag vessel had an issue, then we would consult with Nautilus beforehand, and it may be that Nautilus, obviously we're employed by, will say, "Yeah, can you go and visit?" Or they'll have some dialogue with the company themselves directly, and then there'll be no need for a visit. But um, we only ever focus on flag of convenience vessels because they're the ones which do have the issues, on the basis that um, they are set up to protect the ship owner's interests rather than the seafarer's interests. Hence the title of flag of convenience.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to get onto sort of your casework, which I know involves some of those flag of convenience vessels with issues like abandonment. But first of all, turning to what actually happens on an inspection to give people an idea of what that actually involves. What happens
Yeah.
when you go on board? What do you do?
Okay, so yeah, during an inspection, we check all kinds of documentation and make sure that the paperwork is in order, including uh, pieces of paperwork such as the Declaration of Maritime Convention, P&I insurance, the minimum safe manning documents, collective bargaining agreements, contracts, work rest hours, and wage accounts. And basically, when we're going through that documentation, we're just looking out for any discrepancies that we may see. We tend to see an issue with the hours which have been worked against the contract and what is arriving in the wage accounts as the most common of issues that we find. But we do find other issues such as the vessel being undermanned, or the addresses of the ownership not tallying up between paperwork, or the insurance even being invalid or out of date. And so there's a whole host of different discrepancies that we can look out for. After we've gone through that process, we then move on to inspecting the conditions. For example, in the accommodation, where I look through cabins, the galley, provision store, recreation areas to make sure that seafarers have what they need, whether that's free drinking water, an adequate medicine supply, gym equipment, for weight training or cardio work, Wi-Fi, which is a big one at the moment, which has now become part of the MLC. Every ship should have internet connection for its crew. Books to read, or any other kind of entertainment such as games consoles, karaoke machines, that kind of stuff. I'll also use that time to speak to the crew about life on board. I like to have a good rapport with them, and give them advice about where to go in Liverpool if they get a chance to go ashore, or just ask them about their family or how long they got left on their trip, or basically discuss about where they're from, and maybe if it's somewhere that I've been in my own working life, then we can have a little chat about that as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, we go through everything, and then obviously any kind of issues that we find, we've then addressed them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess now you've done the job for a while, you get a feel for what kind of issues to look for, what kind of discrepancies in the paperwork to look out for. And I guess you are often dealing with some of those big issues in maritime that come up again and again. Things like hours of the culture of adjustment around working hours, things like seafarers being asked to perform jobs that they aren't trained for, or that they aren't being paid for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's many issues that this industry throws up just by nature, and also by failings throughout the ages. We have broader industry issues to face. Like you mentioned, the culture of adjustment around working hours, which is a major one, and a very difficult one, to kind of prove and remedy. Or the issue on container ships, for example, to give you a good local example at the moment, where seafarers are routinely carrying out dangerous work that should be performed by dockers. I mentioned that because we've got a big container terminal here in Liverpool, so I'm faced with those situations almost every single time I go to visit a container vessel. Not only are the seafarers doing this work without proper training, with poor supervision and poor equipment, and often after working long hours at sea, bringing the vessel into the port. But a lot of the time, they're not getting paid for this either, which is obviously immoral and wrong. It's a real problem. It results in injuries and deaths. It happened here in the last 12 months when a guy was crushed between two shipping containers and paralyzed. But that's specific to the container industry. There's obviously a whole host of different vessels that we get with their own challenges. And it's basically a symptom of the industry as a whole, where we have documentation which doesn't do what it's meant to do, and we have enforcement which isn't as effective as it needs to be. And we have a global industry that operates 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, across every time zone constantly. There's that many different factors to take into consideration. Well, as you also mentioned, we also deal with abandonment cases in other parts of the world. I had an abandonment case here yet, but I have dealt with some in other parts of the world. I'm currently coming to the end of a case in Turkey where 15 Ukrainian seafarers are owed about £75,000 in unpaid wages. The company is slowly paying out. It's pretty much at the end now, but I'm constantly chasing this to make sure that they're getting their money that they have earned. As well, at the moment, I've got another one at the moment, which is in Indonesia, and the figure on that one is round about an eye-watering $700,000 at the moment, which it's keeping me busy, to say the least, because we have, alongside that, 21 people on board who want to be repatriated, obviously because they've lost complete faith in the company that they are working for.
Yeah.
So we have these issues which are going on all around the clock. Like I say, 365 days a year. And yeah, that's what we're there to do, is to try and fix these situations for seafarers, as well as, like I said at the start, promoting their rights to try and prevent these issues from occurring in the first place.
Yeah, well, I think those are really interesting examples because,
Yeah,
these are really massive issues that
yeah,
the industry as a whole needs to come to terms with, but
uh-huh.
you're dealing with them on the really personal level where
Yeah,
somebody's whole life has been turned upside down maybe by an issue like this, or they've been seriously injured, or they haven't been paid for months, or
yeah,
and it has a huge effect on them. So, and
absolutely.
of course your job is to get a result for them to try and turn things around. So what happens when you've done an inspection, say, or you've been made aware of this problem, you've identified it, whatever it might be? How would you then go about trying to fix it and improve the situation for those seafarers?
Yeah, well, this is what it's about, really. Obviously, an issue would be raised to us, and depending on the issue, obviously depends on the response. But for example, if somebody was to contact me about their vessel visiting my area, I normally try to get to the vessel myself, um, so that I can assess the situation personally and see with my own eyes. I usually go under the guise of a routine inspection to protect the seafarer from any kind of retribution. As you can imagine, the seafarer is in fear of reporting via the company in the first place. So if they come to me, then I have to protect them by not divulging who it was. Otherwise, they may as well have done it themselves. So I go under the guise of a routine inspection or something else, another reason for me to visit. Once I've deciphered what the situation is, I'll liaise with the master if it's to do with something that can be fixed on board. I'll highlight the problem and explain what needs to be fixed. Further action would depend on how serious the problem is. I might stay in contact with the master and ask for photographic evidence, for example, to make sure that work has been done. And I will also check with the crew as well if I've got contact with them to make sure that work has been done, depending on what it is, as a bit of a check and balance. If it's a more systemic issue or to do with money, which obviously the captain's not authorised to release, then I'll highlight it to the company or even the authorities if it's a really serious issue that may need their involvement. Um, when you're dealing with an issue such as owed wages, I'll try to resolve it on board where I can with cash if that's acceptable for the crew. Sometimes where it needs to be negotiated after the visit, and it becomes casework. This casework also comes out of other things that I discover, such as disciplinary issues, repatriation problems, and contract irregularities. So it may be, for example, that the company is due to repatriate somebody, but they've still got a little bit of time left before they have to repatriate them. So I'll follow that vessel and I'll keep in touch with the company, make sure that those repatriation plans are in place before the seafarer exceeds the maximum they're allowed to be on board. It may be such as disciplinary issues. I've had it before where people have been um, sent home from a vessel under the pretense that they get moved to another vessel, and then it turns out that the company are actually dismissing them from the company, or they've tried to dismiss them when they've got a medical issue, and then tried to frame them for having alcohol or drug issues as well, alcohol in this specific case, in hindsight, retrospectively, and haven't followed the correct procedures. And so I will fight for the seafarer to ensure that they get what is right for them, which is their contract being honoured as an absolute bare minimum. And realistically, they should be keeping their job in that situation. And contract irregularities is quite a common one. Unfortunately, you may see issues where the contractor is not in line with MLC or even ITF agreements, and we will clear them up by going through the contracts with a close eye, and liaising with the company afterwards, to make sure they're cleaned up, and then obviously having those improvements sent to us as proof, signed and stamped by the seafarers and the vessel. And for an example such as an issue of cleanliness, I might also give a heads up to the Port Health Authority before going on board, because it might be something for them to deal with. The same could be said for an immigration issue, or any other kind of concerns that I may have. There are other authorities out there as well, such as the police, and obviously the port state control as well, because there's some incidences where obviously fall solely under their remit, such as the safety of the vessel, the operational readiness of the vessel that I might spot on the visit, but I don't have the power to detain the vessel, so I will contact the port state control, and highlight the issue to them so that they can then act, and make sure the vessel is safe to be used.
Yeah. It's a huge variety of things you do, and I suppose it's a bit like how long is a piece of string, but
Mhm.
how long does your typical case go on for? And is the work rewarding? Is it frustrating? How does it feel when you're trying to get these things through for people?
Yeah, well, it's certainly hard work, and but it's certainly rewarding at the same time. I mean, we're helping people get what is rightfully theirs, and protecting them against being exploited. So to me, there's no greater work, because at the end of the day, if we don't have rules, and the rules aren't followed, then we end up in a situation where we have an industry based fully on slavery, which is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. So the reward is there certainly for me. And the time it takes, well, yeah, how long is a piece of string, as you say? It could be that I'll visit a vessel and the issue will get fixed straight away. Any payments are made right in front of me. The seafarer is happy. We have a laugh and a joke with each other, and the seafarer is quite happy, getting this extra money for themselves, and everyone's great, and we go off, and that's it, done. Or even better, there's no problem whatsoever in the first place. There's always a problem. I seem to always find at least one thing, even though it's the tiniest thing. But there are vessels out there which are well run. I'm not going to deny that, but there are plenty out there where there are issues, and the time it takes to fix those issues fully depends on the nature of the issue, and the people that I'm dealing with. So whether that be the captain on board or the rest of the crew, or the company that I'm dealing with. Beyond that, the flag state, or the insurer, the P&I insurer in some cases, if they have to step in and take responsibility. And obviously the port state control here in the UK too. So yeah, it is literally how long is a piece of string. On many occasions as well, I'll also liaise with other ITF inspectors who may be able to assist the seafarers and or visit the vessel at a future port of call. So we have a global presence. So it may be that I've fixed an issue on board, or still got concerns about, or I've been promised that it's been resolved, or it's an improvement kind of notice, let's say, and I just want to make sure that that the work has been done, or the standards have been maintained, and I'll pass it to my fellow inspector in another country, and they will go and visit and make sure everything is okay on board. or they may go there to enforce or the issue, the resolution of the issue. Sorry, when the vessel calls their port as well. So um, it's it's a very diverse job. It can take a lot of time. It can be quick. It can be rewarding. It can be frustrating, and it can be absolutely everything else in between.
Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to ask you about is how you got into it, your own background, because I guess uh, I can tell you're very passionate about doing the job, and does your own background as a seafarer play into that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I personally worked at sea for 7 years as an electrotechnical officer. And my time at sea was great. I loved the time that I had. But I understand the difficulties that can be faced as a seafarer. Missing your family, not being able to contact your family. Fortunately, I didn't have any pay issues. But sometimes if I did have any pay issues, I think it may have been tipping me over the edge because in this life we all have responsibilities that we have to fulfill. And if your responsibility is putting bread on the table and a roof over your family's heads, and you try your best to achieve that, and then you're denied, and you're also away from them, so you're not there to physically to help them or protect them, then this can cause a very um, troubling state of mind, no doubt, and cause a very desperate sense of worthlessness. Um, so these people who are doing this work for the betterment of their family, if I can help them in any shape or form to make sure that they can provide for their families as they should be able to, then I will. I've got an affinity with the people that I meet during the inspections that I carry out. As I said, because of my time away. Um, but I also, even on the best ships that I go to, if I can spot a room for improvement, I will suggest it because the job itself is amazing if it's done properly. You can get to travel the world, meet new people, work on some excellent systems if you're um, into career progression and you're infused by that sort of thing. And you can also earn good money as well if you're working for the right people. So it is there to be said that it could be an excellent industry, but there's obviously plenty of issues as well which need resolving. And I'll keep pushing and pushing to improve things for those at sea. I do feel as well that my work before working at sea helps as well in certain aspects. When I was working on shore, I was working as an electrician, electrical engineer in industry, um, and I feel that due to the regulations in the electrical industry as well as the maritime industry, especially when it comes to health and safety, and the fact that the electrical industry, as a trade, let's say, or a discipline, I should say, is very detailed and it's all about precision. It does help me as well have a keen eye for discrepancies and detail in the work that I do now, as well as strong investigation skills. Any electrical engineer will tell you that not everything works as you'd expect, and sometimes you can have anomalies, and you have to go through a good fault finding process to remedy issues that you find electrically. And I take that same approach when I'm inspecting ships as I do when I was inspecting electrical systems, and basically be methodical and thorough and try and leave no stone unturned, so you can find the issue and subsequently find the right result to remedy it. Yeah, and basically that's the attitude I take towards it. And yeah, long may it continue.
Thank you. Well, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, or and you're based in the Northwest, of course, but with another ITF inspector, depending on where they are in the world, what should they do? How can they find you?
Yeah, well, I must start by saying that obviously for Nautilus members, the first port of call will be to Nautilus as your union. They are the people who would help you from the get-go. The work I do affects seafarers who are on vessels with flags of convenience, and if they're not affiliated with the union, for example, they may come to me, even if they're under a different union from a different country. They can still come to us, but ideally go directly through to their union in the first instance. But yeah, for us as ITF inspectors, we can be found on the ITF website, as well as the ITF Seafarers app. You can find us on there as well, and it'll have all the contact details. Or even on your vessel, if there's a Seafarers Bulletin, an ITF Seafarers Bulletin, which is the publication from the ITF, then you'll see in the middle pages all the contact details for all the ITF inspectors around the world. I think there's roughly 140 of us across 130 countries or something like that. There's plenty of us all around the world in the major places that the ships call, so that we can offer this global framework structure to assist our seafarers and follow up beyond our own ports, which I think is imperative, really, to make sure that we get the issues resolved for the seafarers who need us.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, I'll put those details in the description for the video as well, in case people are interested in finding out more about the ITF Inspectorate, or even getting in touch if they have an issue. So, Matt, thank you very much for giving us an insight into what you do.
No problem at all, Rob. Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.